and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 290, and today's date is February 14th, 2014, and the title of this episode is Americans Have Lost Hope as the Economic Collapse Accelerates. Before I get started, I just want to wish those people who are celebrating Valentine's Day, happy Valentine's Day, and we're going to get right into the economic collapse news. We're going to head out to Cyprus, and a couple of reports ago I reported that Cyprus was going to ease restrictions and remove the capital controls. Now it seems like they're backpedaling a little bit, and right now a report came out saying that the Cyprus Central Bank chief says he expects all restrictions on bank money transfers and withdrawals to be lifted by the end of the year. And, getting rid of all restrictions, including unlimited money transfers abroad, depends on confidence being fully restored in the banking system and on the government making substantial progress in implementing the country's rescue program. So right now, it seems like they're struggling because they want to make sure that people don't make a run on the banks, and it looks like they're going to start removing the capital controls, but very slowly over this entire year. Now, I think it was like a week ago, they said they were going to remove capital controls next week, and we've seen this before. We saw it back in 2013 where they said, capital controls in 1 week, and 2 more weeks, just a month, and now it's been a year, and they're doing the same exact thing because their biggest worry is that people are going to run and start to take their money out of the banks. And if that happens, the whole system starts to collapse and you have a bank run. And of course, if they don't have cash in there, you have rioting. And they're trying to stop this, and they know it's going to happen, and this is why they've been putting it off. Now, we'll have to see how this plays out, but this is going to be a very difficult situation because as soon as they lift one restriction, people are going to run and say, all right, I can transfer money, I'm transferring my money out of the bank. And, I'm allowed to transfer a certain amount, then I'm transferring that certain amount. Or I can take out, $10,000 from the bank. Guess what? I'm going to the bank and I'm taking $10,000 out. And this is why they're starting to backpedal now. Now they're changing it a little bit because they were worried that there will be bank runs. Because I know, for me, if they told me they're easing restrictions and I can go to the bank and get my money out, guess what I'm doing? I'm running to the bank and I'm getting my money out. That's what I'd be doing. Now, in the Eurozone, in Germany, we understand that, everyone believes that Germany is very strong, but what they're seeing right now is that Germany is having a very tough time. The growth in Germany has been slowing. In 2012, Germany's growth slowed to about 0.7%, and now in 2013, growth has slowed down to 0.4%. So things are not getting better in Germany. They're actually getting worse. And, we've seen this throughout the Eurozone. Eurozone is not doing well. High unemployment, huge debts, and austerity in a lot of the countries, and it's just getting worse and worse as time goes on. Now, here back in the United States, what we're seeing is that things aren't getting better either. The only difference is they've manipulated the numbers so much that people don't even know what's true anymore. But if you look past all these manipulated numbers, you can actually see what is actually going on here. And, of course, if you just keep looking at the stock market, you'll think everything is okay and everything's fine because, one day the stock market goes down a little bit, then it goes back up 100-something points like today, it comes down a little bit and goes back up, and people think that, that's the sign of the economy, so everything is going well. But actually, the stock market is the last indicator of the economy. Everything happens beforehand, and then when everything else just freezes up, can't move forward, guess what happens? The market just comes crumbling down, and this is what we're seeing right now. Things are just getting worse. And what we're seeing is the industrial production has plunged again. And, of course, they're blaming this on the weather. And this is the worst miss and the biggest drop in industrial production since August of 2012. The industrial production decreased by 0.3% in January after having risen around 0.3% in December. And in January, manufacturing output fell around 0.8%, partly because of the severe weather. And, of course, they always blame, every time there's a drop, it's the weather. If things went up and it was bad weather, they wouldn't blame it on the weather. But they always use the weather when something decreases. Now, what else are we seeing, and what other signs are we seeing that the economy is not doing well? Well, we understand that retail sales have been down, and what we're seeing right now is U.S. consumer spending has dropped for the second consecutive month. Consumer spending in the United States dropped sharply in January by the most since June of 2012, signaling a slowdown in the economic growth. And we understand why this is happening. It's common sense. People don't have jobs. The real unemployment rate is not 6.6% because that has been manipulated and changed and revised. And if you go back to 1994 when they changed it all, and moving forward, just like GDP and inflation, they completely changed all that information, the way they calculate it. But if you really look at it, the unemployment is probably around 30% or so at this time. It all depends on the calculation that you use. If you look at shadow stats, it's approaching 30% at this time. And what they're seeing is that, since people do not have work right now, that's what we're seeing. They're seeing that, things are fine. Retail sales are declining. People do not have disposable income, and a lot of people are underemployed. And we see this, and the evidence is that retail sales and the amount of money that people have in their savings and the amount of money that they have to use on spending has completely dropped, and we are definitely seeing this. And this goes on to say, it's not looking good for consumer spending, said Guy Berger, a U.S. economist, a top sales forecaster at RBS Securities in Stamford, Connecticut. Things are getting worse. And again, we understand the unemployment numbers because, they give it to us 6.6%. Then we have myself out there and other people saying that, no, those are manipulated numbers and those aren't the true numbers. But no one ever really talks about the underemployment in the states. And if we look around, here are the lowest underemployment by state. And again, underemployment means that they went from a full-time job to some type of part-time job where they're making a lot less money. And if you're making a lot less money, you're not going to spend as much because you're only going to spend your money on food, clothing, your rent or your mortgage, and you're not running out to buy a brand new car. You're not running out to buy the best, newest HD TV. You're just trying to get by every single day. So here we have it. North Dakota has an underemployment rate of 10%, Minnesota 11%, Iowa 12%, New Hampshire 12%, Colorado 14%. Now here are the highest underemployment states. California, 22% of the population there are underemployed. Nevada, 21%, Arizona, 20%, New York, 20%, Michigan, 20%. Mississippi, 20%, Florida, 19%, North Carolina, 19%. So you can see, and there are a lot more states here. I'm just reading a couple of them here. There are a lot more states listed here, and these are underemployed people where they once had a full-time job making a nice income, and now they might have one or two part-time jobs, but they are not making the income they used to make. And since they're not making that income, and we combine this with unemployment, we have a disaster going on right now. So let's take this one step further here. So what about all those college graduates that are out there and all the youths who are living with their parents from ages 25 to 34? What is the percentage of those people actually living with their parents? Well, that is around 13.6% right now. And that has increased since 2000. So back in 2000, it was about 10% of youths between 25 and 34 that were living with their parents. It has now increased to 13.6%, and it's continually rising. And the main reason why these people are living with their parents is because when they come out of college, they cannot find full-time work. They cannot find work in their field, or they have taken part-time work because there are just no jobs out there, so they are staying home with their parents. Okay, now if we look at the underemployment rate of these people who really want to work at a full-time job, we are looking at a rate of about 32.8% who want to work full-time, but they just can't at this time. So in other words, Among young adults who live with their parents and are working or actively looking for work, nearly 1 in 3 are in a substandard employment situation. And again, you have to remember that most of these students who went to school, to college, who came out with their degrees, are in debt because of student loans. And there's approximately around over $1 trillion of student loan debt out there. And again, we also have the credit card debt of these students because they run that up to pay for books and other things, and just to get by. And again, in my couple of reports ago, what has happened was the government came back and said, holy crap, we have all of these students who cannot make their payments. We need to do something. So they allowed the students to redo their student loans so they can either have payments drawn out for a longer period of time, or they don't have to make payments at this time, because they realize that the youth of America just don't have work, or the work they're working at, they can't make the payments on their student loans. And again, this is one of the worst things that can happen, because when you default on your student loan, it sticks with you. It doesn't disappear, and it makes it very hard to get a car, to get a house, if you're trying to get a mortgage or things like that. So the youth of America, which is the future of America, is falling apart right in front of our eyes, and that's what we are seeing at this time, and this is why things are just getting worse, not better. Now, if we look at the housing market, and they keep telling us how great the housing market is and how great things are, prices are going up, well, guess what? Things are not going well. We understand that the mortgage applications have been plunging around 66%. Home prices are starting to come down. And guess what they're seeing right now? They are seeing foreclosures start to spike up. And they are seeing that across the country right now, all of a sudden, foreclosures jumped 8% in January. And in certain states, they have jumped very high. And we saw something like this prior to 2008, when everything started to fall apart. We saw in California specifically, I remember seeing it on the news. All these houses were vacant. People just left. They left their furniture, their TV. They just left the homes because they couldn't afford it. Well, in California right now, they had a 57% jump in foreclosures. In New Jersey, they have a 79% increase in foreclosures. In Connecticut, they have an 82% increase in foreclosures. And in Maryland, a 126% increase in foreclosures. So something is going on right now, and we all know what it is. We call it the economic collapse, and things are not getting better. I mean, think about it. From the previous reports that I've done, we know that most of these homes across the country have been purchased with cash, 60% or so, and mortgage applications have been declining. We also understand that mortgage departments in well-known banks like Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America have laid off thousands upon thousands of people because they understood this was not going to get better, and they understood that this was in a bubble, and they wanted to trim down the departments because they didn't need them, because they understood that no one was coming to get a mortgage. And this is what's happening right now, and now we see people and these homes that are out there, they can't afford them. They don't have work. Unemployment is getting worse. Underemployment is getting worse. And we're seeing foreclosures start to spike up again. Now, we understand that these mortgage companies and the Fed, the government, have been trying to boost real estate, the real estate market, and what they've done is they created 100% financing. And I saw it when I was up in North Carolina. I saw a lot of signs saying 100% financing, just come on in, no down payment or anything like that. Then they decided, let's go back to the ARMs, which is the adjustable rate mortgage. This will help people because mortgage rates have been rising, so this will help people get into the real estate market. Well, Wells Fargo is now returning to the subprime market. And again, the circle is complete. We are back to 2008. Here we are, and things are not getting better because they wouldn't have to resort to going back to ARMs, 100% financing, and moving into the subprime market if things were going well. This is a perfect indicator that the real estate market is starting to collapse. And again, Wells Fargo is looking at loans to borrowers with weak credit. We believe the wall has begun to come down, wrote Paul Miller, a bank analyst at FBR Capital Markets. And I completely agree. This is another sign, another indicator that things are completely falling apart, because when things in the economy are doing well, they expand. Mortgage departments hire more people because they understand that more people are buying homes. You don't have to offer ARMs. You don't have to offer to the subprime people. You don't have to give 100% financing. Why? Because people are making a good living. People who are making a good living can save money. People who can save money can put a down payment on a home. But what we're seeing is the opposite. We also see this in the automobile industry, where, of course, I reported on that the American manufacturers of automobiles have been channel stuffing car dealerships, and they have about 114 days worth of cars on their lots. And again, they have also implemented the subprime lending, where they're giving it to people that have absolutely bad credit, no credit. And again, they have to open this up, because most of the country at this time, they do not have good credit. Because think about it, the millions upon millions of properties that were foreclosed on from 2008 to now, the amount of short sales, these people do not have good credit anymore. Think about all those people who lost their jobs, lost their homes, now have a part-time job, can't make those credit card payments. Those people have bad credit, and it's starting to seep into many more people as time goes on, because they're starting to lose their work. And again, the start of this year, around 61,000 or so people have lost work. Again, they're starting now. They won't be able to find work. Maybe they'll find some part-time jobs, but guess what's going to happen? They're going to start struggling. They'll start diving into the savings. Once the saving is depleted, they won't be able to pay for their homes. Those homes will be foreclosed on. They will not be able to pay for their credit cards, because most of the people today live paycheck to paycheck, and that has been proven. And a lot of statistics have been out on that. Now, there was a poll taken, and the poll says that Americans have lost hope in the American dream, and I can't imagine why they feel this way. Well, I guess I can. Americans are pessimistic about their chances of achieving and sustaining the American dream. A poll conducted February 4th to 9th says that 80% of Americans think it's harder now than in previous generations to get ahead. They see an economic system in which they have to work harder than ever to get ahead, and a political system that is unresponsive to their needs. They see the wealthy allowed to play by a different set of rules from everyone else. And again, if you really look, I agree completely with this poll, because that is what I am seeing. People just feel that those in Washington are not looking out for them. They really feel a disconnect, and I completely agree. The people in Washington are not looking out for the people, because if they were, they would have never implemented Obamacare. Actually, every single government official would have read all of these bills, and they would have had questions, and they would have said, wait a minute, this is not for the people. We are taxing them. We are putting penalties on them. The rates of these insurance programs are going to go skyrocketing. Employers are going to lay off people so they don't have to meet to be in compliance with Obamacare, and they're going to keep their numbers of employees down. And this is why Obamacare had to rewrite the health insurance law to make it so these companies do not lay off more people, because they really understand the unemployment rate is not 6.6%. They understand it's much, much higher, and he realized, and again, the White House realized that they needed to stop this right now. So that's why he went in and rewrote the health care law, again, without Congress. He just decided to do it. But here are some signs and that are being compiled that we can see that things are falling apart all across the world right now. And again, Greece has hit a brand new record high of 28%. Now, you have to remember, they continually tell us that Greece is getting better. If you look at the mainstream news, since they got the first bailout, they said, oh, they're coming out of it. Oh, this year is going to be better. And it's just gotten worse. The youth unemployment in Greece has reached 64%. The percentage of bad loans in Italy is at an all-time record high. It is being projected that housing prices in Spain will fall another 10 to 15%, of course, because they're in an economic depression, and it is a housing bubble. We see a housing bubble all across the world right now, and these housing prices are going to come down dramatically. China appears to be very serious about deleveraging at this time. The unemployment rate in Australia has risen to the highest level in more than 10 years. The Central Bank of India is in a panic over the way the Federal Reserve is tapering and how it's affecting their financial system. Yet another banker has mysteriously died during the prime years of his life. That makes 5 right now of suspicious bankers' deaths. The behavior of the U.S. stock market continues to parallel the behavior of the U.S. stock market in 1929. And here in the United States, what are we seeing? We are seeing more and more layoffs from the big companies. More layoffs are coming down the pike. A lot of the financial institutions are already saying they're going to be laying off, and we're seeing it start. We saw it start in UK. Bank of America is already saying they're going to be laying off. It's a slaughterhouse in India with IBM, who is laying off, thousands upon thousands of people. We see layoffs, huge layoffs in Sony, Dell, Best Buy, JCPenney, Macy's, and Sears, and it just goes on and on and on. And we're going to see many more layoffs come down the pike here. Okay, now I always talk about how the U.S. government is trying to remove the Constitution. They don't want the people of the United States to have the rights that they have. They're trying to get rid of them, and we can see that they've been doing spending a lot of time trying to remove the rights from the people by implementing a lot of laws, by passing and trying to push certain bills through. And right now, a survey has come out that a total of 45 countries now place higher when it comes to freedom of the press than America does. And I'm not really surprised about this, because if we look at the corporate media, they are not free to report whatever they want. They are owned by the government. The government completely tells them what to say, and they're only parrots repeating what the script that they have been given. And Conan O'Brien has shown this time and time again, where he had clips of many different newscasts, and they all say the same exact thing. But this survey shows that America has slipped 13 spots on the index in a single year. Now, again, America is supposed to be the freest country in the world. So how could possibly America slip 13 spots? Because the freedom that you think you have is actually an illusion. They have been controlling all of us this entire time. This is why they are trying to remove the internet and the freedom of the internet from other people reporting different stories. And they do not want this because they cannot be controlled. They have the control of the money supply. They have the control of the corporate media. They do not have the control of the internet. And again, there's a lot of alternative or new media sources on the internet, and they report things that corporate media will not touch because they're not allowed to, because they are owned and controlled by the government. And again, media like myself and many other people, we are not controlled by them. We report what is happening in the world. We don't parrot what the government is telling us. Actually, most of the time, it's the opposite of what the government is telling us, because we look through the crap to get to the truth of what is really going on. For instance, on the news, the Department of Health and Human Services reported that the number of Americans who have selected the Obamacare plan has reached 3.3 million. Now, of course, when you hear that, you say, oh my God, people are joining up to Obamacare, or 3.3 million. But you have to look at the words that they use. They use the word selected, okay? And it does not mean enrolled. That means they selected a plan. In insurance, when you enroll, you actually pay. When you select, you just chose that plan, but you haven't paid for it yet. So 3.3 million people have selected it, but guess what? Only 660,000 actually are paid in the system. So this number of 3.3 million is very misleading, because you could have gone on to Obamacare or one of the and say, yes, I like this plan, I select it, but never give the money for the plan. It's meaningless. It's almost like going to, let's say, Amazon and putting, 10 different items in your cart, but never paying for it. So they added their stuff to their cart, but they haven't paid. Only 660,000 have paid. But when you look at the news and the corporate media, and of course the federal government, when they tell you 3.3 million have selected Obamacare and received, have selected and chose their insurance package, they actually didn't pay and they're not enrolled. Only 660,000 are enrollees and have actually paid for Obamacare. Okay. Now, Russia has completely come out now and said that the United States is using the peace talks with Syria, the Geneva II, for regime change in Syria. They just came out and said it. And they didn't beat around the bush. They're saying this is all they want, and this is what they're trying to do. And this goes on to say that we have an impression that those backing the opposition in this process had in mind only one thing: regime change, Lavrov said, noting the talks were going in circles. Well, of course they were, because this was their whole agenda. Their agenda was to remove Assad. Actually, this was their agenda all along, going back to 2011, when the war broke out, and the United States and Israel and Saudi Arabia and other states decided to pay for paid mercenaries to go into Syria to try to remove Assad. And when that wasn't going well, what they did was they tried to use false flag events like the chemical attack. And since that was completely sidetracked by Russia and that they couldn't push that any further, they had to regroup. Now they have regrouped. So they decided, let's try a Geneva II peace talk, and let's see if they'll agree upon removing Assad from government. And guess what? That's not going to happen. So now they're trying the next thing. Well, we'll go into the UN and say people are dying out there, they need humanitarian aid, and we really need to get in there, so we'll create this document and we'll have them, the UN, sign off on it, and we'll go in for humanitarian aid. And of course they created this UN document, and of course it said that Assad committed war crimes. That's why all these people are dying, and we have to go in for humanitarian aid. And of course Russia called them on this and said, we will veto this because that's not, right now you're saying that he committed war crimes, and if we all sign off on this, it's showing that he needs to be removed, and we are not doing this because there's absolutely no proof at this time. And you really have to step back and take a look. United States central bankers, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and other states paid rebels to go into Syria and start fighting. Now, most of these people aren't Syrian. So they're in the country and they're killing people, they're bombing towns, they're bombing villages, they're using false flag chemical attacks on the Syrian people, and they're trying to convince everyone that Assad is the person who's been doing all this. But it has been proven that the Syrian rebels have created and implemented these chemical attacks on the Syrian people. And MIT shown that it was impossible for the government to do this with the crude missile that they used, and actually from where the government was positioned, it would be impossible for this missile to reach the location, and it showed that the rebel forces did have sarin gas in their possession, and that whole thing completely fell apart. And now they're trying other tactics, and they're going to try more of these before they use the false flag event. And we can see it building up. It is completely building up, and they are definitely going to use some type of false flag event because they understand they need to get into Iran and Syria to prop up the U.S. dollar, and this is the only way they know how to do this. Now, I talk a lot about the United States central bankers. They're in Africa, they're in the Middle East, And the reason for this is because China's there, and they're trying to keep China at bay, because China is pumping in billions of dollars into the infrastructure of these countries, helping them mine natural resources, helping them build highways, helping them build hospitals and whatnot. And they're using U.S. dollars to do this because they're unloading their U.S. dollars. But there is actually another reason why the United States is in Africa. That's one reason. But we have to remember that they are positioning themselves for World War III, and they understand this. Most of the natural resources that they need, and key strategic materials for manufacturing sophisticated military hardware or components such as airframes, gas turbines, rocket motors, munitions, armor, and electronics, they usually get from China and Russia. They understand when World War III starts, they will not be able to do this. So they need to look for areas where they can get their hands on these natural materials. And guess where all of these natural materials are that they need? They're actually in Africa. And here are some of the materials that they need to build some of this stuff. Cobalt. This is primarily mined in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Cobalt is used in alloys with other metals to make gas turbines and jet engines. Tantalum is a rare hard blue-gray metal that is used in jet engines, nuclear weapons, and missile parts. Its non-military uses include electronics as well as medical equipment and implants. The Democratic Republic of Congo is one of the world's largest sources of this metal. Tungsten, the hard metal, is often used in missiles and ammunition. And again, it's located in Africa. So this is another reason why the United States is in this area. So we can see what is happening here. They are building up for World War III. They're in Africa because they are trying to push China back. We understand that Kenya clearinghouse for the yuan. Countries are starting to switch their reserves from the U.S. dollar into the yuan, and China is pumping in billions and billions into their infrastructure. They understand when the war breaks out, they will not be able to get these critical materials that they need, so they need to find them in different places, and they need to secure these locations so when the war breaks out, they can mine and extract the material they need for the jet engines, the electronics, the bombs, the missiles, and all these things. So we can see exactly what is happening. And if we look further out, we see, the pivot to Asia, the missile shield, all military assets being pre-positioned for World War III. And I can tell you right now, we will end up in World War III because as the dollar collapses, the economy collapses, they will use the false flag event to move this whole war agenda forward by going into Syria or Iran or whatever country. I think it looks like really Syria or Iran at this point. And again, we have to remember Russia and China back Syria, back Iran. Iran and Syria have a pact with each other, and we can see, that they'll come to their aid if war breaks out. So we can see what's going on here. And we are seeing a lot of cyber attacks being done across the globe right now. And the recent one is Tesco.com. About 2,000 accounts were hacked, leaked. There was about 2,000 leaked usernames and passwords, and Tesco was forced to deactivate online customer accounts at this time. And we see a new cyber attack done by the Syrian Electronic Army. Now, so far, the SEA has attacked eBay, it has attacked PayPal, it has attacked New York Times, it has attacked CNN, and now they attacked Forbes magazine. And of course they said they had an hate article up there, and this is why we cyber attacked Forbes magazine, and they defaced the page, and they put the Syrian Electronic Army image up there. And we can see this is all propaganda to build up the case that Syria will be the cyber attacking force that will give us the virtual 911 in reference to banks, the financial institutions, and most likely the power grid, where the lights will go out once this starts to happen. And of course the government will come on and say, listen, Syria is doing this. We have terrorists all over the place. We have the bombing in New York. We have biological weapons in Chicago. We have nuclear in L.A. and in New York City in the financial district. We had major cyber attacks. They took out the stock exchange. They took out the banks, and we're shutting everything down. They're collapsing the economy, just like in the report that I did yesterday. This is the second time that I heard these cyber attacks did not have an effect on damaging the economy of America, and that just leads me to believe right now that they're building this up in our minds that cyber attacks will in fact destroy the economy of America, and we can see where they're going with this. Now, this weekend there is a bank drill happening, and this was reported a while back. It is on this 3-day weekend. We'll have to watch out for this to see what happens. So all eyes open on this. Something might not happen, something could happen, but again, they're shutting down the banks. You'll not be able to withdraw from the ATMs, and again, all these systems are interconnected, and we'll have to see how this turns out. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.